I'm not jealous, but honestly, Zoe, you're lucky. You and Alan have such a nice family. I don't remember you ever quarreling. You live in peace and happiness, and your son is a great guy. With his parents, he just can't be bad. Alan is a great father, and you're the best mother. There was a bench near the grocery store where Zoe and Heather took a seat. Heather lived on the next street, and they often met outside the store and talked about everyday things. In response to her neighbor's praise, Zoe sighed and looked at the trees that were dropping their yellow leaves. I think it's about to rain. Definitely, she said, glancing up at the sky. Heather got up from the bench and picked up her bag. Well, it's time to go. You should come over for coffee sometime. You're always at work. We haven't seen each other in a while. I will, Heather, I will. Zoe hurried home. Emery came home from work and walked to his room. Recently, he broke up with his girlfriend. He was about to propose to her and even bought a ring, but he found out she was dating someone else. The breakup was hard. Emery is still gloomy, and Zoe, like any mother, feels sorry for him. When he was 2 years old, she felt sorry for him whenever he failed. Now he is 25 years old, and she still feels sorry for him. It hurts to watch him suffer. Dear, you should eat something. Later, Mom, I'm not hungry yet. Well, enough of your agony. Everything will be fine. You'll meet another girl. Your father and I will help you to make the best wedding ceremony. And most importantly, you will live happily ever after. Emery ate, though, chewing his food monotonously without appetite. I'm going to Charles, he said. Sure, go. Maybe you'll have a good time. As soon as Emery left, Alan arrived from work. Zoe went to meet him as she had done for years, wanted to hug him, but she saw her husband's cold look. Alan, what's wrong? She began to serve the table, looking at the gloomy face of her husband. He ate in silence, almost as monotonous as Emery. What's the matter with you? Both Emery and you are so depressed. Alan raised his dark, curly head with some gray hair and looked intently at his wife. Zoe's hair was also dark and slightly wavy. From a very young age, those around them admired the couple, finding them beautiful and happy. For 7 years, Zoe was unable to get pregnant. Other people had already begun to gossip, to speculate, hinting to check her health and to figure out whether she could have a baby. But Alan encouraged his wife and told her that they would have a son or daughter. They just had to wait and believe. And indeed, after 7 years together, Zoe got pregnant, and the relatives breathed a sigh of relief. She had been depressed since the delivery, as her friend Heather, with whom she was sitting on the bench an hour earlier, had told. She was depressed, and her eyes were not shining. She was cradling the baby in her arms, and out of the blue, she might start crying. Alan, in contrast, was like flying on wings, unbelievably happy, and wouldn't take a step away from the baby, changing diapers, making oatmeal if Zoe didn't have time for it. Soon, Zoe's sadness disappeared, and all the love in her heart was focused on her son and her husband. Zoe walked over to her husband and touched his curly hair. Alan pulled her hand away. What happened? Can you tell me? I don't know yet, but I want to find out the truth. Alan pushed his plate away. I don't even know how to tell you. Okay, let me be clear, and I want to get a clear answer. Is Emery my son? Zoe found it hard to breathe and froze, her hand automatically reaching around her neck as if she wanted to free it from the shirt's tight collar. Alan, what's the matter with you? Who put you up to this? It doesn't matter who said it. Just tell me the truth. Is he my son or not? Emery is your son. Of course he's your son. Then why are you blushing? Why are you stuttering? I know Emery is my son. He's family to me anyway. That's not what this is about. Am I his biological father? Of course. Zoe found the strength to answer firmly. And enough of this. Our son is upset, and you're making it even worse. Alan got up heavily from his chair. This is not a frank conversation. Zoe began to put the dishes away with shaking hands, nervously dropping forks and spoons. Then she glanced quietly into the living room. Alan was pursuing their family album, examining the baby pictures of his son and himself. Zoe should have kept quiet and not touched her husband, but she was trembling with excitement inside. Why do you keep digging? What are you comparing? What are you trying to find out? He doesn't look anything like me, Alan muttered. We don't look alike at all. He doesn't even look much like you. He looks like himself, said Zoe. It happens. Children don't have to look like their parents. Emery is just like that. By the way, he has dark hair like yours. Stop beating around the bush. You know what? I didn't even have a shadow of a doubt. and now everything has changed. I've met people who were on the same business trip. Do you remember how 25 years ago, or a little more, you were on a 2-week study trip? Your employer sent you on a professional development course. Zoe felt very hot. Her face seemed to blaze, and she looked at her husband, trying to find the right words. Yeah, guess what? I met a classmate today. You can guess who. So tell me, Zoe, who is Ted Bull? Alan, he is your son. Emery is your son, the woman said wearily. Zoe, you know, I can check it. I'll do anything, Alan said quietly, but there were hints of anger in his voice. Zoe sat down on a couch, putting the white towel on her lap, and she was silent for a minute. No need to check anything, Alan. I guess it was destined to reveal the truth. All these years, I was sure that Emery was your son. Well, when we planned the baby, but it didn't work. I thought I was the problem. I thought I was infertile. But the doctor said there was nothing wrong with me. I was fine. That's when I realized that you can't have children. The woman began to move the towel, folding it neatly, then spreading it again. I wasn't going to cheat on you. I loved you. And I love you now. It just happened. But when I realized I was pregnant, I told myself it was your baby. Even when he grew up, I saw what he looked like, but I kept quiet and I couldn't leave you. Forgive me, Alan. Forgive you? Alan jumped up and almost roared. It sounded like the roar of a wounded animal. You've been deceiving me all my life. How could you? You chose not to have a baby with me, but have a baby with some stranger. I did it because I wanted a baby, because I couldn't get pregnant with you. You're lying. I don't believe you. I'm healthy. You're the one who... For the first time in her life, Zoe was showered with a hail of curses. He stopped talking only when Emery appeared on the doorstep. Emery's shocked stare made them stop. What's all that shouting? What's the matter? Nothing, dear. Go to your room. We'll sort it out. No, wait. Alan stopped him. Why are you tucking him in like a baby? Why don't you sing him a lullaby? He's old enough to know the truth. Alan approached his son and took his hand. Sit down, son. You're not a little boy anymore. You won't faint. It just happened to come out that I'm not your real father, you know? Your mother cheated on me with another man. That's the story. What is this nonsense? Have you been watching too many soap operas? The boy looked at his parents, not believing what he had heard. Unfortunately, son, it's not a soap opera. We got our own soap opera here. Alan started pacing the room, rubbing his neck. Turns out it's true. Your mother just confessed. Mom, is it true? Zoe threw the towel away and walked over to her son. It's true, son. This is how it happened, and I'll tell you everything. You see, cried Alan, it is true, and she hid it for 25 years. You're a good actress, Zoe. Not many people could pretend like that. I wasn't pretending. I loved you. Don't you dare talk to me about love. I'll give you 3 days to move out. This is my house, my parents' house, registered to me. I don't care if you go to your sister's or your mother's place. I just don't care. Mom, how come? Why did you do that? Emery's lips trembled. Calm down, son. Let's talk together, you and I, and then we'll leave this place. We'll go away together. And why on earth would Emery go with you? Alan stopped in the middle of the room. It's not Emery's fault. Emery was my son. He'll always be my son, even if I have a dozen kids. And I'll have kids, I know I will, but not with you. He walked up to his son. Emery, stay here. This is your home, and I'm your father. I raised you, and it's not your fault. Emery, pack your bags, Zoe said. We're leaving right now. Gillian cheated me the same way. The boy looked at his father. All women are like that. Dad, I'm staying with you. Emery, what are you doing? Now Zoe screamed, her face flushed from screaming. It's ridiculous. I am your mother. Will you really leave me? I will, her son answered calmly. Gillian also cheated me by dating someone else, and now she got married, spitting in my soul. And it's not Dad's fault you cheated on him, so I'm staying with Dad. That's the right thing to do, said Alan, and he took a pillow and went to sleep on the couch. Don't worry, I won't be a nuisance. I'll leave tonight. And you know, Alan, I think it's good that you found out, because I couldn't tell you. It made me feel better somehow. I feel sorry for Emery. He hasn't figured the situation out yet, and he's also suffering for Gillian. He has a psychological trauma, And that's why he's turning his back on his mother, and you are taking advantage of that. Zoe spoke softly so as not to wake her son and carefully packed her bags. You can take whatever you want, said Alan, splashing water into his face from the basin. I won't interfere. Well, why? We'll do it according to the law. File for divorce and let the court divide the property. Alan straightened up, holding the towel in his hands. Zoe, do you want a loud divorce so all the neighbors know what happened? I said take whatever you want. We'll divorce quietly. And here's another thing. I'm not going to tell all the neighbors that Emery's not my son. He was my son, and he'll always be my son. And your cheating has to be our secret. No one has to know about it. Zoe closed the suitcase, turning to Alan. She liked her husband's idea. More than anything, she wanted Emery to be unaffected by their divorce. Fine, I don't want people gossiping about Emery. She pointed to the pots and pans that were on the stove. I made you some soup and chicken, and there is rice in the little pot. There's ravioli and mincemeat in the freezer, enough for a while. I have to go to work now. I'm going to Donna's tonight, and then I will go to my mom's. Alan remained standing beside the washbin with a towel in his hands and came to his senses when the door slammed. He sat down on the couch, clasping his arms around his head and howling muffledly, as if an old wound was sore. Daddy, what happened? Where's Mom? Nothing. It's all right, son. Mom went to work. Dad, I'm not leaving you. Even though I'm young, I've already experienced cheating too. It's okay, son. We'll get through it. It was just so unexpected. I thought that she would say that it was not true, but she confessed. A bitter grin appeared on his face. Look at her. What a conscientious woman. 3 months passed. Alan and Zoe got divorced. Emery still lived with his father, but the house seemed empty now. It's okay, son. We'll get through this. Alan kept repeating the same phrase, encouraging himself and his son. Emery, what would you say if I invite a woman to our house? Emery shrugged his shoulders. Well, you have the right to do that. I'm not old yet. I might still have a family and kids. He walked over to his son and tapped him lightly on the shoulder. Don't you get jealous of your father? Come on, I understand everything. Don't worry. I won't be offended. That's good. I met a woman. She's 30 years old. Her name is Rebecca. We started dating, and I want to take the next step. Without cheating, I want to make it real this time. I understand, Father. I understand. Thank you, Emery. You're a real man. Thank you for your support. Let's have a woman in the house to cook dinners and make it cozier, because you and I have turned the house into a man cave. By the way, Emery, do you call your mother? Well, she calls me all the time, asks how I'm doing, and invites me over. Well, what about you? You should go. She doesn't deserve that, Emery answered. Well, have it your way, but she is your mother. Alan felt guilty. When he met Rebecca, his resentment toward Zoe began to recede. It seemed to him that he had his whole life ahead of him, a life without deception or cheating. Actually, she hasn't called in 3 days, Emery admitted. She used to call me every day. So, call her yourself. Ask her how she's doing. Emery took out his phone and dialed his mother's number, but he only heard that the telephone subscriber was unavailable. It was strange. She always kept in touch, and now, for the first time, the boy felt separated from his mother. Daily calls had become a habit, and it seemed that it would always be so. And now, not a single call from her in 3 days, and subscriber unavailable. Call your grandmother, Alan advised. Maybe she knows something. Grandma's hearing problems. It's no use talking to her. When Emery said that, the phone rang, and he couldn't believe it when he heard his grandmother's voice. Emery, darling, come over, she said, weeping, or rather, almost shouting into the receiver. What happened? Come here, Emery, she kept repeating. Well, it does not make any sense at all. Emery didn't understand anything. The next day, he got a day off from work and went to see his grandmother. Where's Mom? He asked his grandmother, Sarah. Zoe's in the hospital. She has been in the hospital for 3 days. How so? Why? First, her blood pressure went up, and then she had a heart attack. She called you, and you didn't answer. She was so upset. Emery was shocked by the news. His mother had never complained about her health and was a beautiful, blooming woman. When she and Alan walked side by side, People would look around, admiring the beautiful couple. So Emery could not believe that his mother was in the hospital. You should go and see her. She's your mother. She carried you under her heart. Okay, Grandma, I'll go right now. Emery left Grandma's little apartment and headed for the hospital. Who's walking around without shoe covers? A loud woman's voice came from behind Emery. I'm here to see Zoe Norris, he said to a tall, stately woman in a white coat. Oh, probably. You are her son. Yes, I am her son. How is she? Well, first put on shoe covers, and then go to the 5th ward. But first, I will inform her about your visit, because such surprises are not safe for her heart now. Well, what are you staring at? Listen to what the head nurse says. Yeah, okay, said the boy, stammering. He entered the ward quietly, trying not to make noise, and was embarrassed to see a pale Zoe. She smiled at her son. Hello, son. Sit down. I'm a little sick. Her beautiful face was very pale and sad. Mom, I didn't know, I swear. I called you yesterday and you weren't available. Oh, my phone must have died. I didn't even use it since I got here. Are you okay? Is it serious? It's okay. Doctors will treat it. My friend Emma Montgomery works here. She placed me here. She said I had to get treatment, so I obeyed her. Is Emma Montgomery a tall, stern woman? Well, yeah, everybody's afraid of her. But she's nice. They promised to discharge me in 10 days. How are you doing? What are you eating? You've lost weight. Have you met someone? Do you have a girlfriend? No, Mom, not yet. Oh, my dear, I just want you to be happy. But don't worry about me. I'll be fine. Emery looked out the window, blinking his eyes. He didn't want to show his mother his weakness. He was depressed by what he saw, and he felt a lump in his throat. Mom, please, get well soon. I'll call you and Grandma every day. He took her hand. Please, forgive me. Son, don't blame yourself. I totally understand you. You just got over the breakup with the girl you love, your fiancée, and then you got all this news, and you got confused. Emery pressed his lips together and was silent for a minute, stroking his mother's hand. Mom, I love you. Zoe smiled. Darling, I knew it. I knew it and I believed it. I love you too. Don't worry about me. Mom, I'll visit you tomorrow too. What about work? I'll take a week off. I have a reasonable excuse. My mom's in the hospital. He came out of the ward and wiped away a tear, glad that his mother did not see it on his face. Well, well, well. Come here. Emma Montgomery stood outside the doctor's office like a white tower, imposing fear with her menacing visage. All the medical staff obeyed her. Even the dean of medicine and hospital administrator were said to be afraid of her. When she showed up at the hospital 15 years ago, the dean of medicine, David Lownser, said after the first meeting, a grandiose woman. One of the nurses heard it, and from then on, she was often called Grandiose Emma. Listen to me, kiddo. She put her massive hand on Emery's shoulders. You should not come to your mother with empty hands. Understand? Only now did Emery realize that he hadn't brought any fruit or flowers. I forgot about it, I swear, he admitted. Can I go to the store and come back again? Yes, you can, and buy some flowers. All right. Emery ran out of the hospital, got in the car, and drove to the flower shop. He returned half an hour later, put on shoe covers, and called out to Emma. You promised to let me see my mother again, he said. This is for you. He held out flowers. This is not for me, but for your mother. Oh, what a fool. Just like my students. I have to teach you everything. Sorry. Then here. Emery reached into his pocket and took out a chocolate bar. This is for you. Thanks for that. I love chocolate. She stopped in front of the ward. Give her fruit and flowers, kiss her, and promise to be a good son. Got it? Emery nodded. The sight of Emma made him obey every word. At home, Emery sat at the table with his father for a long time. The tea had long since cooled. They heated it occasionally, then set the mugs aside again. No offense, Dad. I've decided to move to Grandma's. I'm going to wait for Mom from the hospital. When I found out what she'd done to you, I thought you were the victim, if I can put it that way. And now she's too weak. I want to support my mom. I'm not offended. You're doing the right thing. Zoe has always been a good mother, and she was a good wife, too. Dad, get married. You deserve to be happy. I won't say anything against it. Emery, what about work? It's a long drive. That's not a problem. Many people have to drive downtown from the suburbs to work. I'll have to wake up earlier. Emery moved in with his grandmother over the weekend and began to visit his mother every day. Emma Montgomery was greeting the boy with a smile, opening the ward door and announcing, "Zoe, welcome, a visitor." And then she would come in and sit down on the bed for a minute. "You have a nice son, Zoe. You shouldn't have worried." "Emma, thank you for your support." "I couldn't have acted differently, Zoe. 15 years ago, I was going through a bad time. My husband and I almost divorced, and you were there for me, and now it's my turn." "Yes, it all happened, but Alan and I can't be together again." "That's because you're too conscientious. Anybody else would hold out to the end and not confess. So now, you have to decide what to do. The main thing is that Emery is by your side with all his heart and soul. What kind of life is this? We only see each other when something terrible happens. When you get better, we'll be apart again for ages. Emma, we could see each other more often if there was a good reason. Emery, how about saying hello? You rush like a hurricane. What's your hurry?" The head nurse shouted and stopped Emery with a bouquet of flowers. Out of breath, he almost ran down the corridor without noticing anyone. "Oh, Emma Montgomery, hello. Mother is being discharged today, so I am in a hurry." "I can see you're in a hurry. Almost knocked Grace down." Emery turned around and saw a young nurse walking toward the ward. Her blonde hair was hidden beneath a snow-white medical cap, and only light curls were poking out at her temples, swaying with each step she took. Emery froze, staring at the nurse until she stepped inside the ward. "You shouldn't be in such a hurry. No medical records have been made yet. Besides, Grace has to give your mom an injection now, so you'll have to wait." "It's not a problem. I'll wait. I'll wait downstairs in the cafeteria." At this moment, Emery handed one of the bouquets, and today he had two, to the head nurse. "Emma Montgomery, this is for you. Thank you for your help." The woman smiled. Emery, you got it mixed up again." "What's wrong again?" surprised the boy. "I have two bouquets, the second one for my mother, and this one for you, as a thank you." Emma opened the door to the ward slightly. "Look," she whispered. "Now Grace is giving your mother an injection. And all this time, Grace has been taking care of Zoe, giving her IVs and other procedures. But that's not the point. She's been trying to support your mom the whole time, to comfort her. You should give the bouquet to that nurse." Emery looked at Emma with surprise. "Seriously, give the bouquet to Grace. Maybe later you will thank me for that." She laughed. For the first time, Emery saw in this grandiose Emma Montgomery, as her colleagues called her, a sweet and kind woman. After picking up his mother from the hospital, Emery moved out of his father's house, settling with his mother and grandmother. He saw Alan often, visiting him once a week, but never stayed long. He would stay for an hour and a half and leave. It was unusual to see a stranger in the house he grew up in. The furniture had been rearranged, different curtains on the windows, different dishes, and most importantly, the new mistress of the house, the short, pretty Rebecca, with a smile on her face, always trying to please Emery. "Well, stay a little longer," his father asked. "Tell me what's new with you." "It's all the same. I've already told you." Emery kept silent, and then, when they went out of the gate, he confessed. "Everything has changed. You can see for yourself." "Well, we can't do anything about it. I didn't expect such a turn of fate either. A very sharp turn. Tell me, how is your mother? How does she feel?" "She's fine. She has a very good friend who works at the hospital. She's the one who persuaded Mom to get treatment. We've lived together for so many years, and so we had never complained about her health. Well, let her not be sick anymore. Alan wanted to ask his son to say hello to Zoe, but he didn't dare." "How is your personal life?" his father asked instead of hello. "Well," Emery hesitated. "I don't know how to tell you. It's just the beginning." "Well, do you have a girlfriend?" "Yes," he said. It was 2 months after Zoe was discharged from the hospital. For Emery, that day was the day he met Grace. He gave the bouquet intended for Emma Montgomery to Grace, according to Emma's advice. That's how they met. Zoe knew that her son was dating a nurse from the hospital, but she kept quiet and was in no hurry to ask questions. On the contrary, Emery started asking questions. "Mom, please don't worry, but I have something I want to talk about. It may be unpleasant for you. Zoe sat down in front of him. Emery, I'm listening. You can ask anything you want. Well, I wanted to know about the man you were dating many years ago. You want to know who is your father, your biological father. She started stroking the tablecloth with her palm as if she wanted to straighten a little wrinkle. I don't know much about him. We met by chance, and we broke up very quickly. I made sure he couldn't find me. He didn't even know my last name. Sometimes he was mentioned in the newspaper. He held a high position in the municipal office at the time, and he had just gotten divorced. I went away and didn't try to see him intentionally. Well, if you want to know more about him, the library has all the editions of our local newspaper. They often wrote about him, and there's a portrait of him there too. 10 years ago, he passed away. I found that out in the paper too. His name was Ted Bull. Son, even though your biological father was Ted Bull, I always loved your dad. Alan was your real father because he raised you. He cared about you as much as I did. I know, Mom, I know. You don't have to make excuses. I'll go to the library and look through the newspapers. I just need to know something about him. Emery hadn't been to the library since high school, and even in high school, he went there only when it was necessary. This time, he spent more than 2 hours leafing through old newspapers, peering into various faces. He found several articles and even one photo. He looked into a stranger's face and found familiar features in it. At first, he tried to figure out where he had seen that face, but then he realized that he just looked like that person who didn't know or have any idea that Emery existed. He walked out of the library tired, but with a feeling of some relief in his soul. He felt unbearably sorry for his mother, for his father, and even for this Ted Bull he had never met. He wished he could live so that he could make no mistakes, even 10, 20, or 30 years from now. Well, hello, Zoe. Here I am. Alan was stomping around in the hallway, hesitating to take off his jacket. Hello, Alan. Take off your jacket. Wash your hands. Come to the kitchen. Let's have dinner. Zoe, dressed casually, pulled up a chair. Alan eagerly took off his jacket and headed briskly into the bathroom, explaining as he went. When Emery told me about his plans, I called you right away. It's a big deal, isn't it? My son's getting married. But I haven't seen the bride yet. She's a nice girl, very decent. You'll have a chance to meet her. Emery promised to visit you and introduce Grace to you, maybe even tomorrow. Alan sat down at the table, coughing slightly. Have you got a cold? No, I'm fine. I came to discuss the wedding ceremony. I'll provide financial support. Also, we need to think about a gift. Do you think we should do it separately or together? I don't know. Whatever you want. I mean, you're not alone anymore. I don't know if I'm alone or not. I was too hasty when I asked Rebecca to move in with me. What's Rebecca got to do with it? It's not her fault we broke up so quickly. Zoe, I was wrong. The whole thing with the kids. Should I even think about kids now? My temples are already gray, and I don't think I can have kids now. I have one son, that's Emery. So why don't we give the young ones a gift? Reunite or something. I mean, move in together. Zoe covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shuddered. She tried to cry silently. Zoe, don't cry. You have to understand me. What was I supposed to do when such a truth was revealed? And you know who told me the truth? Brittany Booth. And you know where I met her? In the city at the hardware store. She got divorced, and she got one of the stores after the divorce. She owns that store now. While I was talking to the clerk, she recognized me, walked to me, and smiled. Do you remember how she used to chase me in high school? Anyway, we're talking, and she hinted that she is single. She invited me to her place. Well, I laughed in her eyes and said unthinkably, I didn't even like you when we were young, so don't even try it now. She was offended, so she told me that she saw you. I didn't believe her, so I got out and left. And then, I started thinking, and I decided to find the truth. Well, you found it. Zoe sighed. Let's have dinner now. Zoe, now that we figured it out, let's be together again. I love you, and you love me. I know you do. That's right, Alan. We have love, but we won't be happy. Not anymore. You'll say you love me, but you won't forgive me, and I'll feel guilty about it forever. No, Alan, we can't make it work. What makes you think I won't forgive you? Maybe I've already forgiven you. Alan, the more you love, the harder it is to forgive. Let's help our son with the wedding ceremony. I'm so grateful to you for Emery. You're the best father. Well, so be it. Then it's not the time yet. He looked at Zoe as he was trying to memorize. Why are you smiling at me like that? I haven't seen you in a long time, and I can't believe you're here. You know, I've been doing the probate paperwork. I left the house for Emery. He's our heir. Well, let's have dinner and talk about the wedding. I mean, it's going to be hard for me to do this alone. And the most important thing in this whole situation for you and me is to remain good people toward each other. Emery and Grace's wedding ceremony was fantastic. The newlyweds were beyond happy. Zoe and Alan remained in a good and warm relationship, but now they lived separately.